Welcome to you all. We start with a vow and the four great vows. Vow. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you all. I want to continue on with this topic I've been on, which is living. And I think it's important because when we start talking about right view, oftentimes it seems to some that it becomes to be very abstract. And it's something that is, let's say, inconceivable or unobtainable. But because of that, oftentimes people, when they listen to it, they throw the baby out with the bathwater because they don't understand it and they don't see how it can be used in the everyday living. But quite to the contrary, that's where right view really has benefits and shows its purpose. Its purpose is a Mahayana purpose of, just as we do our Samantabhadra great vows at the beginning, to deliver innumerable sentient beings, we cut off our endless vexations and practice limitless approaches to Dharma. And when we finish doing all that, then we turn off the lights and attain supreme Buddhahood, but not before everyone has an opportunity to leave and does in fact, when we say leave, it's leaving the dream. So we talk about that as being an awakening. So right view is very essential to do this right. When we don't do it, when we don't apply it in the proper way, what happens is that we just tend to try to be a better person. And I'll talk about that in a moment in terms of that. But it's different. When we are living with right view, we are very, very clear about what we're doing moment to moment. One of my most favorite quotes, and as I get older and closer to the age, it becomes even more popular, at least to me, and which is a quote from Mark Twain that said, life would be imminently more easier if we started at the age of 80 and worked our way back. And I just love that quote because when I think about it, I think I really want to have the wisdom of an 80-year-old. Well, I'm not getting too far from it now. So I appreciate it more now as I'm getting older and having that wisdom, where when I'm talking to people, I'm thinking to myself, I've been there, I've done that, and I've got the t-shirt for it. And so there may be seeing it at first instance where after a while you've lived that and you have this wisdom to you. And it's an important thing. I've also found that as you get older, you begin to look around and see other people and how they conduct their life. And from what I've determined is that there's three kinds of people. The first class is persons who have really worked against the nature of their own intrinsic qualities and bought completely into the ego. They've become impatient, they intolerant, angry with people, and completely blind to the environment. The environment here is not just the ecological environment, but the mental environment and the environment of those that person encounters. And everything is about me, my pleasure, my quiet, my solace, my food, my money, my this, my that. Everything is this way. I, me, mine. And as they get older, those kinds of traits are amplified. So they become that crotchety old man or that old biddy of a woman. And it's very sad when we see people that way, where the second class of people, they age gracefully, artfully. And in those people, they're very calm, they're very soft, very loving people, full of love with a clear mind. And some have practiced that all their lives and have gotten that. And then there's the third class of people, which are those that started off at the first category and then realized that that wasn't very beneficial, and through practice changed and was able to become a softer, more compassionate, more clear person. I kind of resemble that remark of the third class, where when I was very young and in my 20s, I was what I would say the judge of the world. I judged everything, whether it was too hot, too cold, too humid, too this, too that, whatever it is, too noisy. Um, and everything was measured by me, measured with the measurement of the ego. Is this beneficial to me? Do I like this? Do I not? And when we think about it and we think of the comfort zone of people, there's not that much in terms of temperature wise that you can say, oh, this is perfectly comfortable. I can be in 65-degree temperature, or I can be to 75. After that, it gets to be uncomfortable either way, or whatever it is, or even more so if you're from a dry climate, humidity, or if you're from a humid climate, the lack of humidity. Um, and so our range as human beings is very, very narrow because of the ego. The ego is always wanting this perfection that can't be there. And especially with climate change now, we have to really adjust ourselves to what are the expectations in terms of what we can expect of it being too hot or too cold in this world. We do that by letting go of the ego, letting go of the self, and understanding things uh, clear. So if you started off here with a strong ego, there's still hope. If you practice, you can find that the range of tolerance, of patience, of love, of compassion is is unbounded. It is something that is not easy, and it's why we look at things and we try to say we have to forgive and transfer merit to those who that we perceive want to do us harm. And the best way to get rid of enemies is to make friends out of them. This is not very easy for us, and the ego every once in a while rears its ugly head, and I fall victim to it as well. Um, but I try. It is why I am a practitioner. I have a vow to break it rather than being a non-practitioner. And when I was you preparing for this lecture, I started thinking about things in kind of in a reverse way, where as we begin to look at this, and this was something I think Sam was talking about last week in the questions, where he was looking at dependent origination. I believe it was him. It might have been somebody else, and and saying that you work it the reverse way. And I was so smiling at that, because that was something that I had a conversation a long, long time ago with Senta about that, and saying the 12 dependent originations, you look at them and you go in the reverse order. And that was something that Master Sheng had talked about. I didn't know he had done that, so I was kind of accusing Master Sheng of copying me, but obviously he said it first. But in any case, um, as I was looking at that, then I thought about the Huatou. The Huatou is a method of meditation practice where one puts their mind before the word. So whatever it is, what is emptiness? What is Wu? But the practice is not what is Wu, nor seeking the answer to what is Wu. that is uh, um, just running in the hamster little circle thing and spinning. But it is that, that which, and this is the part that makes it difficult, because once I do that, I start getting into the Watteau, before the word. And when we are before the word, that is living. Some of you will not understand this. Others will understand it 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What I'm saying, some of you may be able to pick it up right now. But living is the Watteau before the word. What is there? There's no ego there. It's just mind. There's no separation. In emptiness, there's no separation. There's an equanimity there. There are no borders. There's a lack of space between all of us and all things. That is a Watteau. We cannot even begin to define it in words. Once we open our mouth, it's lost, but at least we try. But this idea of living before the Watteau, because the Watteau actually means before the words, we have to just practice in this way. When we do, what happens is that it is not that we fall into this abyss or void, as I refer to it often. The abyss and the void is simply being devoid of ego. You give up this little tiny grain of sand and replace it with all the sands of the Ganges River. If those Ganges rivers, if all those sands were Ganges rivers, that's what you get in return for giving up the ego. And it is a wonderful way in terms of seeing life and seeing the practice. This is right view. It's not easy for us to do that because we go like, what is he talking about? How can we practice in this way? But it is in this way. And then when you sit down to meditate, meditation becomes very easy because everything is just before the word. Before you begin to think, what's there? When you practice silent illumination, it's the Watteau. Before the word. Before the word comes up, there's just that. If you're watching the breath, if that is watching is formless, egoless, it is just mind. It is also the Watteau. It's before the word. And when we see things in this way, it helps us understand the world. There was a question that was posed to me, and I'll kind of paraphrase the question. The person was asking about that if there was a person that had a relationship, let's say, I'm presuming it was kind of implied, but not stated, outside of a marriage, let's say, or some kind of a close situational and relationship. Would it be something that was a violation of the precepts, and would one suffer in accordance with Pratika Samapada karmic forces if one went outside that relationship? And how do you answer a question like that? It's not an easy question to answer, and there's not a set ruler that we hold up and say, in this situation, you do this, because there's many different things. It could be that other person is making that person's life a living hell, or beating them, or depriving them in some way, or creating some kind of a mental environment that's very insufferable, where you're just having that person create more and more bad karma for themselves. But my answer was one where I said, one does what makes sense without doing harm to others if possible. So when we say that and when we say makes sense, it isn't make sense to the ego, because it's very easy to justify that to have, um, let's say, relationships with other people, casual relationships with other people. I was almost to say causal relationships, because that certainly would cause quite a bit, but it's casual relationships, and justify it in that way. But are we doing harm to other people? So in answering that, it is not easy to answer it as, like I mentioned, holding a ruler up to it and saying, in this situation, then we measure it this way. It isn't done that way. It is that we we are aware of whatever we do, that um, we are involved in causation of things. And in whatever we're doing, if we're involved in causation, that whatever we do, we should evaluate it carefully to make sure that it is the best alternative that one can do, not necessarily from the ego standpoint, but from the causation standpoint and pratika samapada, and seeing things very, very clearly. It's not easy, and there's too many variables to go into it to say, okay, well, this and this, because as we begin to look at that, even the Abhidharma, for instance, talks about causal conditions, and then these other conditions that arise that are related to that, that also are affected by that or affect that. The same thing in Yogacara school with bija seeds that perfume the environment. And then there's tiny bija seeds that are also connected. So it's not so easy. But the easy part is, in the present moment, what decisions do we make? Are they our decision for our good, or are they decisions for the environment's good? And that's a different thing. You often see people that want their children um, to excel in school, and maybe that child just isn't as bright as they want, but they want them to excel, so they push them and push them and push them. For what purpose is that? They only create a tension in that child that at some point will break, because that child cannot possibly reach that level. Or it could be to play a musical instrument. And I have one of my uh, assistants, that his son is in ice skating. And I always mention to him, he does have a free choice to leave. And he says, oh, yes, every time I tell him, anytime you want to quit, you can quit. Now he's at a very high level of moving into seniors in competition. But the father is not forcing him one iota to do it. It's something that the child wants to do. This is the way that one should do it. Once it becomes something that isn't for yourself in terms of any kind of a benefit, is just for the ego or afraid of somebody else's ego, then it's not a wholesome thing. So we see things clearly. We see the cost down the road of what we're doing now, and to try to make the things go well. And I had another friend that really pushed her child, as an only child, pushed her, get into the best school, get this, get that, until it was that, like tightening the strings on a lute, and the string finally broke, and the child could not perform at that level anymore, nor did want to perform at that level. It was just too much. So we have to see the things in a way, and Nagarjuna, in this sense of the Madhyamika school, is a perfect pattern that we should use in our daily life, in living, which is the middle way. So it's we um, if we eat an ice cream and we taste the ice cream and you go, this ice cream tastes very good. The next day you want to eat another ice cream because you remembered how good this ice cream was, and so then you keep buying. This is not the middle way. The reason it tasted good was it's a different flavor, coolness, maybe the fruit taste to it, whatever it was. The next day then it becomes a habitual pattern or an addiction, and it is not wholesome for us anymore. The middle way is that every once in a while, you can have an ice cream. For me, it's a donut, but I also have do not donut, and so I push myself away from them, and that's part of my practice, so that I am not always eating donuts. It's not wholesome for my body, and so I understand that. But every once in a while, it's not bad, except if every once in a while is every day. And so you have to be mindful about things and use the middle way in whatever you do. When you see people, you greet them cordially and happily and stuff. You don't overdo it or underdo it. No, everybody's personality is different, so that's okay. And so you adjust to people's personality. Some people are very, very reserved, and some people are very uh, uh, demonstrative. I remember Master Sheng, because of his precepts and his station, when people saw them, they instantly wanted to go over the Shifu, Shifu. They wanted to go and hug him, right? And I remember he just always go like this, and he put his hands like this, Amitofo, and put that barrier there, not because he wasn't interested in seeing the people, but to maintain his own station in what he's doing, and exercise the middle way. Yet he would talk to the people very personally. He just didn't want to have that physical contact with them, because of his station. He felt that as the essentially the abbot of president abbot of Dharma Drum, he should not have that kind of a contact. Um, but that's okay. That's the middle way in accordance with what we do. But so we are very, very careful. We're also mindful of appearances, of what we're doing, so we don't lead people to believe there's something going on, or nor do we get into situations where we're like an Ananda from the Shurangama Sutra and lay on some um, soiled bedding, and so we avoid those kinds of appearances and those kinds of actions. They're not wholesome to us, and all of that is all the middle way. It doesn't mean that if we met somebody of that trade, we couldn't be compassionate with them, or we couldn't try to help them or give them attention or whatever. It's different. We don't see things like in a caste system, or any kind of a class. Everybody is there. I learned that from my father, and my father was a welder in trade, and he used to always tell me, he said, Mijo, son, he says, you treat everybody the same, whether they're a doctor or they're a blue collar worker or a fruit picker, whatever, you treat them all the same. You don't treat one more important or give more attention to one than to the other. And and this has uh, done me very well in terms of life, because um, I treat all of my clients as an attorney in the same way. And all of their problems, whether they're small problems or great problems or monetarily high amounts of money or low amounts, I treat them all the same and with respect. And and that has done me well in terms of people. And not only that, but it's helped me because people will go and say, go see Gilbert, he'll be interested in your case. And he really cares. And that's important, to have somebody that cares about you rather than just simply see you as a um, a dead president, like money, That's probably the saddest way of seeing people, is if you see them as an economic opportunity. I see myself as somebody that people um, give me money and then drop their problem on my desk, and now it's my problem. But I'm equipped to handle those problems for the people, and so it's a good trade. But everything we do is in accordance with a balance. I don't have to be the richest person. If I do that, I start thinking about cutting corners and trying to cheat people or whatever. I don't want to do that. This is not the way that we live. We have to live in a very wholesome way. Um, I wrote this down. To view the world as what needs to be in the world is right view. So living is, when we look around this world, what needs to be in the world? Does our anger, our impatience, our insults, do those need to be in the world? Our greed, does it need to be in the world? What needs to be in the world is love, compassion, understanding, patience, endurance. All of these things are there, and those beget others like that. So whenever we have patience, it begets patience in the future. Not only does it beget patience or become patience in the future, but it gives patience to other people. Be patient, be calm. Sometimes I'm there with my clients or other people that they're getting all riled up. Just calm down, calm down. We'll sort this out. Be quiet, be still. And you're bringing a level-headedness to there, a middle ground between perhaps two people who are arguing. And then you try to see the things in this way. I remember Shifu, um, when we'd have meetings, they could be business meetings or whatever kinds of meetings, and people would give their opinions about what they should do. And then finally, Shifu would look over to me and he'd say, Gilbert, what do you think? And I said, well, I like this person's approach about this, and I like this person's approach, and I understand this. And what I tried to do is incorporate what other people were saying to find a middle ground. This takes a lot of patience and compassion to try to find a way to draw those people closer rather than polarize them. And that's why Shifu would always wait until the end to ask me what we should do, so that people could see that it's not this person's position or that person's position, but it is something in which we collectively are discussing and coming up with solutions. And so we don't try to overplay our part or underplay our part. We just understand that, and then we bring this all together in terms of what we should be there. And that's important in terms of our life. Moment to moment to moment, you will find that this is presented to you every single day. This is living. It's living because you're aware of what you're going to say. You don't want to take a position diametrically opposed to somebody else unless you want to make an enemy out of that person. But you can bring forth some wisdom to not cut their other person down completely, but to show that they're the soundness of your presentation in a way which sometimes is difficult. As an attorney, it's a whole different story if you're in court. If you're trying to settle a case, then you try to find the middle ground between the people. We have to practice personal restraint. Personal restraint is too much of this or too little of that practice. We want to be able to, whatever we do, we use the middle ground. This is important. And right view is balance. It's a balance between all these things we perceive to be opposites. And and it's kind of interesting because there's actually a clothing company, a surf clothing company, uh, RVCA, and their slogan is the balance of the opposites. And so it's interesting because I just thought about that right now and say that's exactly what we're doing, because in them they try to balance off different kinds of artwork and different things that for their wear, something that's comfortable but yet nicely presented or whatever, the colors and everything. And here in our life, we we balance between what appears to be the opposites, but they're just appearances in mind. And when we see it in the right way, um, we we do it in the proper way to find that balance. So it is. I wrote this down: seeking a rectification, like like an adjustment of things, without patience leads to imbalance. And this is important too, because while we seek the balance, we also have to have patience. So, so it's not something that is done immediately. When we make the vow, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings, I always joke and I say, and you better awaken soon because I don't have much patience. So but it's quite the opposite. I'm accentuating that one, in making vows we have to have patience. We're in it for the long run, and in the long run it could extend beyond this lifetime. So our connections with people and how we we relate to them in this lifetime will determine what we're doing in the next lifetime. Have you ever wondered why somebody will go out of their way to help you? I'll put a positive spin in it instead of somebody that'll spit on your back. You spit on my back. Why'd you do that? Well, they don't know, but maybe 2 lives ago, you did something to them, but you don't remember that. But it is in this way. But when we see that, we see that we're in this lifetime, and behind there's many, many, many lifetimes, and forward there's going to be many, many, many lifetimes. They're just like these waves. There's not individual lifetimes, it's just waves. And so we have to have the patience to be able to calm it all down, to adjust it. Forget about, what happened in the past. Forget about that. Let it go. Let it go. It'll smooth out the future. But if we bring to the present what transgressions happened to us in the past, then we create an unsettlement in the future. We don't understand that. But we just strike out blindly. We really cannot find that balance and that calmness. With right view, when we see there's no time and there's no space, it's easy to balance it all out because it's all being balanced out in the mind. Now, I'm talking about how you live, but I'm talking about right view too. But this is how we should live, how right view applies to this moment. It's not some kind of a heady thing or some scholastic type of a thing I'm doing. My fault was not bringing this to you, but that's why I'm trying to make up for lost ground. So rather than try to lose some of you in the confusion that you have about this, I'm bringing it right to this moment so you can see how wonderful, how beautiful, how incredible the practice of right view is. And so when we use right view and this patience, we seek this middle ground. But oftentimes we try to overcompensate with right view. I'll give you a couple of examples of that so that you can see, and you might go, well, I resemble that remark, not necessarily in the same situation, but similar situations. I had an uncle that bought a bottle of vitamins, And he thought, if one vitamin can give me all this power, because that was when vitamins were first coming out, and so people were saying, get power, you can have all of these vitamins, and they will make you very, very strong. Well, so he took the whole bottle and he almost died. And so the thing is that we don't have patience. We don't have an understanding of how those vitamins work. So he thought, if this is good, then 100 times is even better. But it isn't in that way. We see things as in going in towards the future, going towards the future, but we are still over here. We have to catch up, or I should say, the the present has to catch up with the future. But we're already in the future, but we just have to let it come together. And then it will work that way, but we have to have patience with it. Um, as one of my hobbies is creating bonsai trees. And in bonsai trees, you have to think many seasons, many years down the road what you're going to do. But you also have to have patience when you're wiring the branches not to break them. You have to wire them in the proper way and with patience. And everything is within patience. You don't want to make something unnatural. Doing the bonsais is not trimming a poodle. But if you're in a hurry, you could end up with a poodle-like tree. But it is something that tries to recreate in some form an expression of nature. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100% exactly like nature, but an artistic way of showing a demonstration of your patience and artistry in what you've done, not in the moment, but what you did from before that brought that piece of the bonsai tree to fruition. And so when you see it, you have many of them. Some of them, they're very, very beautiful. They're already finished. They're close to being finished. And others, they're just saplings that you're just beginning to wire. I see all of you in this way. Some of you, the wires are off of you. I don't need to put any wires to bend you this way or bend you that way. You're already there. Others are saplings, and I have to kind of guide you in the right way. But there's a patience there. I don't hold you up to the same standard as a senior student. And likewise, I'm not overly critical to the senior students if they make a mistake because it's natural. We see everything in this way in terms of looking at it. And in the thing that interests me in bonsai is being able to look many seasons and seeing how you can mold that, and also the process of learning that I still consider myself a beginner, and so I go, oh, I understand if I do this and this and this, in 5 years from now, these branches are going to look very, very beautiful, very natural. And so you do these things in this way. And so my thing is that I'm molding the environment, the Chan environment, so that you have a balance there, a balance of the training, a balance of the practice, a balance of compassion and patience. All of these will turn you into a very good practitioner if some of you are already there. Another story that I had was once my um, my staff, they got inspired by me talking about compassion, so they went out and bought a bunch of burgers and went out to the park to distribute them amongst the homeless. And so they were very altruistic, in terms of what they're doing, but they felt like they wanted to do that for the homeless. And the first homeless person they came to, and they went, and here's your burger. And the man just looked at them and said, where's the fries? What do you say, right? And that says enough, because your expectation when you see a person like that, what did you expect? They're a homeless person. They don't oftentimes have the wisdom of others, and there's a problem with them. And so we don't understand it, but simply feeding them a meal is nice and compassionate and gives them a, a, a short joy, but doesn't solve their problem. I compare that to something that's happening in Venice Beach in California, where they have a great homeless problem in Venice Beach. But what's happened is that the homeless have occupied this beautiful beach in Venice, California, and turned it into an encampment where people cannot enjoy going to the beach because they have to pass by off this total encampment right there on the beach. I mean, so they have these little $1 million tent homes there because it's a beautiful place, but it's destroyed the economy and shut down all of the businesses around there, because nobody wants to go there to buy anything, because all they run into is panhandlers and people who are there, people who are not mentally stable or use drugs, or just some of them are recently became homeless. Others are been that way for a long time. But what Venice has done that's very interesting is they've done a weekly patrol where they make the people move off the beach. But as they're doing that, they also have various people there, from the Veterans Administration to social services to mental health, all of these different organizations that are there to assess what's going on with these people and offering them solutions, real solutions to what their problems are. They're not going to help everyone. It just does. The problem is too vast. But if they can help the people, then it's not something that you're just simply dispossessing them from there. You're providing them with an alternative place to stay, and the finance, if they need finances or mental health or everything. This is planning to the future. This is something that's compassionate. It's not just simply the police coming in a Gestapo way and just clearing the beach out, but they're trying to solve the problem. It's not an easy one, but I laud them for that, because I think that that's something that is important, not just for the homeless, but for the community in total, and for the economic livelihood of the community that really relies on those incoming dollars of people buying things, where now it's a ghost town. So these are the things that we use where we see a balance and a way of looking at things. It's not just simply handing somebody a burger. It's trying to help the person and understand what their needs are, and try to help them in a way where how it works. Another quote, I quote unquote, something that I wrote down: the constant utilization of wisdom applying to the present moment is the illumination of the mind. So in the present moment, whatever appears there, as we apply in wisdom, it's a continuous application of wisdom to whatever is appearing, is the illumination of the mind. At some point, that's going to be there. There's not going to be a thing called wisdom anymore. It's just simply the mind illuminated. Not bad. But our practice in living is this constant application of wisdom to the present moment. If not, what are you going to put in there? Ego? The ego always makes the wrong choices. It never does the things in the right way. And as a result of that, you just create an unwholesome and unstable environment. It's better for us to use wisdom to create a balance in the present moment. This is a natural practice, and it appears to be artistic, like a tightrope walker. So a tightrope walker, as they're walking on there, and they're mindful about going this way or that way, and they're carefully balancing in the present. We bob and fall to this side or to the other, but we carefully restore the balance by returning to the center. So this is our practice. This is living, is trying to come back to that center. The center is the present moment and the application of wisdom to the present moment. Not bad. So if we can do that, then things will work better, not for us, but for the environment. We should not be worrying about whether we get an award or we get this level or whatever. We're not in a video game. We're not going to do that and then get up to the fight the grand poobah and then what? You know, that that's living in a dream. I remember somebody saying that they had gone to a an interview for a job, and when they went in there, they said none of these people know that in the game of such and such, I forget the names, forgive me, I'm not a game player, but in this game, the very, very important game, you know, I beat the highest person there. I achieved this level, you know, and like, and, you know, that's like ego talking. It's not going to get you there. You know, it would be like, well, how many hours a day do you practice that? You know, isn't there something else that you could be doing in your time? But in any case, everything is the middle way. If you like game playing, play it. Just don't play it all day and all night. Better to play the game of right view, right? Every moment you reset and you play. How long can you stay in the present moment? How long can you have wisdom? It's a game. You just play it, and after a while, you get good at it, right? If you can get good at shooting aliens or whatever you do, you know, then you can certainly be good at this game. Just shooting down obstructions by just staying in the present moment. You don't even have to point the gun. You just it all falls away naturally. It's easy. It's right here. The beauty of the middle way is discovering the balance is in this present. This present is without this past or future, as I mentioned to you. Maybe we can't understand that. Maybe we are still stuck with our watches and time and stuff. So it's hard for us to understand that. In due time and practice, it will thusly come. This middle way is a practice that's devoid of selfish notions. So when we're in the middle way, we we abandon the self. That doesn't mean that we stop eating. It just means that we abandon that self that wants to eat a half a dozen donuts in one sitting. It abandons that self that wants to defend itself against all challenges and all insults and all slights. When we have nothing to defend, we won. It is in this way. We, in the present moment, we don't practice blindly. Without mindfulness of the totality of what appears to have happened before and what is to come, then that's not a practice. So when we practice, the mindfulness is that little by little we begin to become aware of what has happened in the past. I think I was using this side. What has happened in the past and what will happen in the future. So we do not lose that totality. By doing that, past and future meld into the present so that there is no past or future, there's just simply mind. Having the mind in the present moment is not the present moment um, uh, of now. Everybody talks about now type of thing. but it's a present moment of that. There's neither the future nor the past. It's just simply uh, mind, a little different way of looking at things. It's the totality of it, rather than trying to look at it from this point of view and say, oh, you know, we're heading in this direction. It isn't in that way. It's just simply the totality of mind itself, and awareness by the vows of what we need to do to to rectify the the environment. This mind, this is mind's insight into the mind ground. So when we are aware of past, present, and future as being one, this is the insight into that there's a mind ground that doesn't operate in the temporal or spatial limitations of of let's say of the earth and samsara. It is the utilization of this insight that influences the appearances in this fleeting world. So the utilization of this insight, it influences the appearances in this world that's always changing. That is what we do. That's right view. Now, I use the term influencer. This is like a new agey word, influencer. There's so many influencers now on TikTok, let's say, uh, or um, or YouTube or Instagram or whatever. I actually lose track of all of those things. If you ever try to get a hold of me on Facebook, I think I have an account there, but I've never opened it up. So, olvidas, forget it. But the thing is that there's influencers there. My famous last words: next year when I retire, I'll probably be on all of these programs. Um, but let me show you how powerful influencers are. Has any of you, I even hate to even see if you did it or not, taken the Packy Chip Challenge? Good. Most of you don't even know what that is. How many of you know what the Packy Chip Challenge is? Raise your hand. I figured you would, Matt. You didn't take it though, did you? All right, don't. The Packy Chip Challenge is an influencer thing where you buy one chip about this big, and it's the hottest thing in this world. Um, and it's like biting into a jalapeno times 100,000. And it's like, well, let's see if you can do this. So there's always these people on on YouTube or wherever, and they're saying, I'm going to open this up, I'm going to eat this chip, I'm strong, I'm going to do it. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Why would you put something in your mouth? It would be like, would you light a torch and stick your tongue out and burn it purposely? No, you wouldn't. But that's what the power of influence. The reason I'm mentioning this is because there's like thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people that have bought this chip and done it so they can become instant YouTube influencers. And all they've shown is how their stupidity, because some of them that you see the net in 5 minutes, the paramedics are at their house and they're there with their feet up in the air, wishing they could cut their tongue out. I bring that to your attention to show you the power of influencing. If people can be influenced by doing something so stupid as that, and if you did this, it's stupid. Think about how you can influence people in a positive way, moment to moment to moment. You're just patient about it. You don't have to come out with a product, of a patient chip. You just demonstrate it moment to moment. People will follow you. it is the power of it, but unfortunately we use this kind of influence for stupid things. I really hope that that kind of an influence at some point people are going to say, you know what, getting out of my car while it's running and walking next to it or dancing next to it, and watching it crash into a tree is not a smart thing to do. But people influence people to do that, or run through a fence. Stupid. But if people can do that, you can also become an influencer, right? You influence what's happening in the present moment, but you use wisdom instead of stupidity and ignorance to do that. Not bad. So you too can become a TikTok influencer. Nobody's going to tune into your channel because you're just going to be there. Well, show me something. Just be patient. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. So we often influence people by our own example. We conduct ourselves in a manner in which we wish that people will be guided. We also utilize our own weaknesses and our past conduct to understand the confusions of people. We offer up another viewpoint. So we do these things not like a person that's a reformed drunk, and nothing bad about it, reforming from being drunk. But there's people that were engaged in some practice, and then they start looking their nose down at the people that were engaged in that practice, are still engaged in the practice. But this is not the way. That's why when they have support groups like AA, those are great groups, because the people say, we've been there, done that, we know that. We're not looking down at you, we're here for you. And this is the same thing that we do instead of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's IA, Ignorance Anonymous, or IU, Ignorance Unanimous. Which one do you want to pick, IA or IU? So if you pick IA, then we can help people. We can do it. We help them because we see in them where we've been, what we've done, the transgressions we've done, the harm we've done to people. This again is living. This again is shame and repentance practice. All of this fits into right view living. So, and so, yet simply saying to someone that you don't exist, like we don't pontificate and tell people, oh, well, you don't exist, and hope that they'll go, oh, yes, I understand, I don't exist. That's not going to help people. I tell people that in right view simply because you're equipped to handle it. But if you go to people and you try to tell them you don't exist, whatever, it's not easy for that. But you still can use your compassion and your worldly wisdom to help people to find a way to lighten their load. I had this dear cousin of mine. We grew up together, and then she went to Northern California. But she lost her son to gun violence, and I think he was in his 20s, and they had told me that she was in a very, very bad way, and she couldn't stop crying, and they were worried about her because all day long, for quite a long time, she just cried for her son. And so I called her up to talk to her about it, and she's crying and crying over the phone and saying, the people, they always tell me, you have to stop crying. Stop crying. They always tell me, stop crying. I cry even more and cry even more. And so I just said, why? And she says, why what? Why do they tell you to stop crying? And she just stopped for a moment. And she was puzzled by what I said to her. And I then added, Who can tell a grieving mother that she shed enough tears? Nobody can do that. You cry as much as you want. That's what a mother does. And she stopped crying. All she needed was somebody to tell her that it's okay to cry. But she had gotten into a hysteria of crying and crying, and people telling her to stop crying, and she's doing the opposite. But when she understood somebody actually was listening to her crying, listening to her suffering, of course you're going to cry. Your son died. It's a horrible thing. And he died of violence. How can people tell you stop crying about that? And it all came together in terms of when she understood that somebody cared. And this is what we do. This is a very strong point, but moment to moment and every day, we're presented with things where people are suffering or they're crying or they have a problem or whatever. And it's okay. Sometimes I see the people coming into my office and they're limping. And I'll say, oh, you weren't limping last time. You must be in pain. And then they start talking to me about what's troubling them. And and it doesn't matter to me. I'm not looking at it and looking at my watch and going, you only have this much time. I will listen to them because this is what we do. This is living. We care about each other. Whatever it is, we care about them. It's not like when people say, hey, how you doing? Oh my gosh, my neck is hurting. So, or where do you want to go to eat? You know, that's like, hey, I'm not feeling well. I'm falling over, whatever. And so people don't care. They don't want to be troubled by your troubles. But that's not us. We understand that. We have compassion. This is how we bring people to the practice, by listening. The practice of right view is listening. It's Guanxin Pusa, right? Guanxin Pusa's name. The name of Guanxin Pusa is the one who listens to the suffering of the world. Do we listen? Do we listen to the suffering of the world? If we're a practitioner, yes, because we want to practice for the sake of helping others. The more we practice, the more it strengthens our resolve to help others. The more it strengthens our resolve, the less suffering there is in the world. It's natural. It's right view. It is Mahayana. This is how we do it and why we do it. We blend and harmonize with others, but we don't preach. We moment to moment find a way to make a difference, like beautiful, gentle ripples rolling through a still pond. And I tried to see this in a way in which what we do, if we throw a rock in the pond, it can crash and create a bunch of things. But if we're just very calm and we're just lightly touching the surface and sending out these calming waves, they will reach other people because there's no distance between us. When we practice in this way, that's why people then become attracted to others, because they feel comfortable next to them. Feels good, This person's very calm. They're not going to hit me. They're not going to insult me. They're not going to do things. I trust them. And even if they did, it would be for my benefit, whatever they're telling me, to destroy the ego. But when the person's new, we do not attack them viciously or whatever. We draw them to us with this compassion and this calmness that we have. So be calm, be cool. Of course, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Um, and if that being a perfect person is your goal, then you probably should practice Confucianism, because Confucianism had the ideal of a perfect person, but it's still samsara. If you seek immortality, then you should be a Taoist, because a Taoist everything is their alchemy is to try to reach a state of immortality. But that to me is a bit of low hanging fruit. Because what is special of continuing this ego? We don't forsake these doctrines or just like dismiss them. Chan is unique in its way. What it does is it converts them to the coin of the realm of Chan. And it takes these and sees it and says, okay, for instance, if if you want to be immortal, understand that you've never been born. That's immortality. Not bad. It's a pretty nice conversion from Taoist Bitcoin to Chan coin. Not bad at all. You know, and you want to be a perfect man, then seek for others before oneself. So a perfect person is taking care of others, not of themselves. And if you want to be a good Christian, I don't know if any of you are Christians, but if you want to be a good Christian, then you have to understand the meaning of the phrase, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The Christians oftentimes miss this, and they believe that is some place to go to. But that term, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, is just the present moment. The Buddha is in the present moment. The kingdom of heaven is in the present moment. It is just this way. We miss all of that, but this is right view practice. Okay, next week I promise you I will talk about Shifu's stories and how they fit to the right view. I've got quite a few of them, but I'm still trying to tax my memory banks to pull up others. I'm trying to get the ones that I personally observe him doing. So we'll do that. Other than that, I thank you for listening, and I'll take your questions. The confessional is open too. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me good?
Yes.
Awesome. So it's not, I don't particularly have a question. I just kind of wanted to share my experience this weekend. If that's okay. So I volunteered for a 3-day yoga fest called Oneness Fest. It's kind of a community that very spiritual. And I went there in the intention of kind of for myself, in a sense, like exposure therapy, experimental wise, to see if I could. The reason why I'm bringing this up is, you spoke of being present and stuff, and as I've shared with you, I really struggle with being able to do that. But in turn, I also can definitely correlate with like the compassion part. Maybe not so much self-compassion for myself, but for others. I made a lot of special connections. Definitely spread the Dharma, no doubt about that. I met other fellow practitioners, and it was overall a pretty good experience. It wasn't so much the best one for me, due to like what I deal with internally with my obstructions. But I met one gentleman that I guess kind of seemed out of place in an environment like that. But then again, it's that type of setting. Anybody's really welcome. But so it was a bigger guy, like he definitely worked out at some point in his life, and that's why I kind of gravitated towards him, because I work out and I've been lifting and physical fitness is a very big facet of my life for a long time. So anyway, long story short, I started a conversation with him, and just, I always welcome everybody with a smile, and said, "Hey, how are you? Thank you for coming and being a part of the festival." And I was just curious as to what, brought him here. And he started to talk about, like, he was diagnosed with onset diabetes. And I'm like, wow, okay. And, he was kind of giving me his story about it. And I just, listened, and he started opening up a little. He's, this guy was a big guy, big, very macho type of dude. And, so I don't know if it was just a matter of me. I know I'm a pretty easy guy to warm up to in general with my true nature, but maybe seeing that I was a pretty big guy and that I worked out, whatever, maybe made him a little more comfortable with opening up. And, he kind of went in a little detail about his background, and he wants to beat his diabetes, like, to where he doesn't need to be on medication the rest of his life, or where it to get worse and worse. And so he's trying to, do the right things and get in touch with his spirituality and just be more open-minded. And I just gave him some insight, like maybe with some tips about, like, diet, because I've went down the road of trying so many different avenues to help with my mental health.
Are we going somewhere with this?
No, well, I was just trying to. The long story short is, I just wanted to share that, even though I was dealing with my own internal conflict, I still showed compassion to him, and just there's other people that I had connections with, and I was just able to. I felt like I definitely made an impact on some people there, and because I worked security that night too, and people felt that they were at ease with my presence. And that's, I don't know, that's I just wanted to share that. So.
Yeah, I think the practice is one where now you become aware of the present moment. You become aware of something other than yourself. So it takes away the attention, internal intention of, let's say, what you call your obstructions, or things that are arising in the mind. So it's not necessarily bad. You are aware in the present moment at all times of what you're doing, what you're saying, um, and you use this to practice. It will come to you little by little. It will come to you, and you'll understand. And as you begin to practice more, you'll understand, how and what to do and say at any given moment, and help people. And as you do this, then your, let's say, mental afflictions will naturally drop off. So just keep practicing, just keep doing it, and it will work for you. It's something, because you're new to this, and you have a zeal,
Yeah.
which is great, absolute great. There's what we call Dharma joy, and just maintain that Dharma joy. But like as Master Sheng said to me once, is don't be too joyous. Okay, just be middle way. Okay, so good report. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sam. There
Hey,
you go.
um, I actually I wanted to ask for just some advice. So recently in last week, a friend and long-term coworker of mine at my shop passed away. They very suddenly. They actually unfortunately took their own life, and their service is going to be tomorrow. And I know a lot of my coworkers who I've formed a union with, so I consider very much so like close, like a unit. And I was just wondering your advice on how can I best ease their suffering or be as much of help towards this very unfortunate situation without coming off, like I'm doing too much or being insincere. I just kind of wanted to ask you for your advice on that.
Yeah, it's interesting, because especially when you're dealing with people, that are, let's say, from a different religious viewpoint on whatever, you find the common ground to talk to people, and you try to, it's not like when you say, well, if it's your time to die, it's your time to die. You know, everything's impermanent. That has no relevance at that point in time to anyone. So you cannot do that. What you do is you become a person that that says, you know, it is a pity that he left, you know, too soon. You know, I have very fond memories of him. So then you're drawing towards the positive aspect of that. If there's things that have to be done with the family and you can offer up your help, then you do that. And so there's ways in which you present it, but you don't come off as as preaching or proselytizing or whatever, you know. And a lot of times we'll see that with Christians where they're overzealous in terms of that, and they want to convert that into some kind of an opportunity to take people to their religion, and it's a matter of, I never try to take Christians away from their religion. I never try to do that. Why would I want to have people lose faith in something? At least they have faith in something. So when you do that, you just use your wisdom, you know, this innate wisdom to see the things and to say the things that that can help people. And no, and that's something that um, I've I have measured my words many times in those situations and said the things that are beneficial. And with time, you'll be able to see that. But I mean, that's exactly the situations in which, you know, that you have things that you can draw people to you because you are making a connection with what's going through their heart at that time. And so it leaves the people to be more open to what you're doing. Not essentially, you know, you're not in a conversion mission, but but if people are interested, why are you so calm or whatever, you can talk to them, you know. So again, I always say that we don't like Buddha loves you, you know, and knock on doors like that. That's not our way of doing it. But nevertheless, as I mentioned today or tonight, that we lead by example. And this is what you do. You just lead by example. Matt, the same thing with you. So wherever you're at, you lead by example, and you try to be very good with that. So that, yeah, that's how you do that. You just kind of, you know, there's a time for grief, and you understand that. And so that's, it's not the time to bring people and say, oh, you know, like you don't exist, so it doesn't matter anyway. That's like not going to help. And so you find the wise words for the situation that can cross to a to reach their heart. Once I went to do a will for a lady that was passing away, and during the course of a week, she was now on her deathbed. And when I walked in, she saw me, and she was so frightened, like as if death walked in the door. And I went, oh, you're afraid. I said, you see me, you know, and you see there's a conclusion of your life. That's why I'm here, to do your will. I said, don't be afraid. And I pointed to a crucifix on the wall. I said, you're a Christian. You see the crucifix on your wall. You believe that there's another life. Don't be afraid. You have your faith. And if you die, understand that, you know, you will be reborn in a better place. As I see it, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be going to heaven. So rejoice. And it changed her, and she was no longer hyperventilating, and her eyes were bug open. You know, she calmed down. And so sometimes by drawing them towards their own faith is the wisdom too. And so you see how things work. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
good.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. Thank you.
Good one. Robert.
Thank you, Gilbert, for all the teaching all these years. I just want to share something that over time it's not it's like a realization that uh, this ego has been painting such a great illusion that let mind led a sleepy mind down the path of using illumination to chase wisdom. It was just so ignorance was so silly. But one day you were talking about ego is so smart, ego is painting such a ignorance, hypnotic environment. Then I say, then all of a sudden it's like I got so much happiness about something that you were just talking earlier about IU, all the acronym you was using. And actually, I was gravitating, over time, I was gravitating towards, I call ignorance IA, ignorance awareness. It becomes so easy. You stop chasing for anything. You don't have any expectation of, I want to be there. I want to be very smart. I want to be very wise. I mean, that is such a humongous illusion that so easily anybody can fall in. But all of a sudden, when you just say, I'm just going to, or the mind is just going to every moment just be aware of literally moment by moment. There's so much ignorance one can fall into. There is just millions of ignorance that can happen that you can paint yourself. And it's literally you'll be so happy. Every time you catch a ignorance, you are ecstatic. It's like, I caught myself from not doing such a stupid thing. I mean, I keep catching myself doing this. I mean, I fail, but I catch it. Sometimes I catch it after, sometimes I catch it in the action, sometimes I even catch it even as it bubble up. I say, whoops, stop it. Literally, I mean, it's time, but not a time. It's like this awareness has nothing to do with time. So what you just lectured this today about the acronym kind of helped me maybe solidify, it strengthen the belief this awareness is, if it put to good use, if I mean, don't try to away everything, the birds, the sound, the smell. No, just aware of ignorance. That's it. That's in that's this plate is so full. Just ignore of the ignorance that one can easily step in or follow or believe. I mean, that is enough a lifetime to practice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's still a few embers in the fire that are burning, but not bad. The practice that you're talking about is a progression. Just like you started becoming aware of that, you were becoming aware, and then how ego is very clever. I want you to view your commentary afterwards. Replay the lecture and see it, and see what room is there for practice, further practice on that. I think you'll see it. Okay, I'm not going to say anything, but I think you'll see it. But I'm very happy because you're such a sincere practitioner, and so that's what's important. Again, we rejoice, in the merits of others, and we rejoice in the wisdom of others as well. And so see that. But I thank you for doing that, because it's all a progression that you're on, Robert, and it's all worthy of practice. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, we'll get to Wendy, the big W.
Hi. Hey, Gilbert.
Hello.
This lecture was weird. We've been doing, like, trying to read the sutras, reading the books, doing this. But the problem is with compassion is it's not, this is not ego. I'm saying this is that I don't find compassion hard. In fact, I don't understand why other people don't do. I mean, just live like you say, like with eyes of compassion. I don't understand, but I accept. And but I see I have none for self, and I don't know what we're doing that. We go out the door and I see compassion for cockroaches. When I think I'm like, oh God, you're gonna be killed in this building. They're gonna come kill you. It's that kind of. I mean, it's to that extent where I see things like that, but and I don't think about it. Doesn't I don't think about it. Why I say I understand. People tell me, stop being so nice. Why can't we just hate a person? I feel like but when self come back to the door and it's like, you need to practice. You need to understand the sutras more.
Okay, you're breaking up now, Wendy, but I get an understanding of what you're saying. And Wendy's the kind of a person that's always been someone that I may talk about you a little bit, hasn't had the easiest life, but she's one of the most compassionate persons that I know. And if she has a shirt on her back and you need it, she would give it to you. So she's kind of trying to say, why do other people see the world like I do? And it's not an easy thing. Some people are naturally very compassionate, and they're very much that they can help in this way. But it isn't something that comes easy to most people because of the ego. People they'll say, well, I gave my son a brand new car, I'm very compassionate. No, but what else did you do? There's limitations to it. But but you see the world in the way you do. That as an attorney, I often see the underbelly of culture and how family will cheat family. And it's something I don't even understand how that can be. But I see people where parents will cheat children, children will cheat parents, brother will cheat brother, whatever. I don't understand that. It's not within my makeup to say I will do these things, but I see it all the time. And the only thing you can do is understand that this world is filled with ignorance. And the only thing that you can do is, because you're so rich with compassion, is just continue sharing that compassion. Just share it and share it and share it as much as you give, more comes to you. So just do it in this way. You don't need to understand all of the logic behind people and why they do the bad things or that they don't have compassion. Just understand that it's ego that prevents them from seeing things in the way that you see things from. And even though you don't have a lot, oftentimes you have riches beyond the riches of billionaires. And so just continue to practice in this way, and you'll be fine. And just share this compassion. This is what you do with it.
Yeah, I wasn't. I don't. I understand that. I understand that I am that we don't understand, and that's okay with me that we don't understand things. What I was saying is, Gilbert, I don't have any for the self at all.
And that's fine. And just keep practicing in that way. That that until you find that you don't even have any further self.
But
You're
is
on
that
the right way.
ego that's letting me have compassion for self? Is it ego trying to be better than I am, or that I can be, or that I have strived so far?
Well, it's ego being very clever in terms of it. It's like, Gilbert, he's not here. Okay. And so, but it's all right. Just practice the way you're practicing. As you illuminate that, it will become clearer to you. So you're fine. I honestly, Wendy, I don't want to mess with your practice because you're one of those people that you may not be the most well-read person, but your
Yes,
daily practice is very, very good. And
right. I understand more things with my heart than my head.
Exactly. And I don't want to mess with that. You're doing fine with what you're doing. Okay. I think Sentha wants to contribute something to you. So let's hear from her.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
Wendy, my experience is that when there is no self-compassion, then if you are in a really difficult situation, the lack of self-compassion will come out with the people closest to you. So it's not as though you're the only person who is in the shadow of your compassion. Just because you're not, I would say that that's something to work on as well. Because if you don't have self-compassion, then it may come out with others who are closest to you. It may not come out with others who are farther away. You'd be perfectly compassionate to the stranger. You'd be perfectly compassionate to your roommate even. But there'll be a circle really close to you that your lack of self-compassion will come out with.
Okay, because I don't expect compassion from others. I don't expect that.
No, it's not that it's not about what you're expecting out of others. It's
okay.
You're willing to give, the compassion that you're willing to give
Totally.
to others.
Okay.
So maybe in your current life situation there isn't somebody or some situation where you're not being compassionate to anybody other than to that person. But as long as you are not compassionate towards yourself, there is one being in the world that you're not being compassionate towards.
Right.
And you don't know who else the other beings are. So that's the unknown. Okay. And that unknown may make itself known. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. That will help.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're in the process of doing this because you naturally have compassion, but it's not that you learn to love yourself, but you learn to understand yourself and forgive yourself and to see things clear about yourself. We all do that. I mean, there's few days that I don't go by and go, dang, I can't believe I said that or did that in my life. I have such regret and remorse for things that I do, but it's also part of the compassion towards myself. And that compassion is to forgive myself and to pay attention to myself. And when I say self here, no, I'm no longer talking about the ego.
Right.
I'm talking about mind. And this component of mind that appears to be housed in Gilbert, but it's just mind. But there's a compassion towards that too.
Oh, I just got chills. Thank you. I totally understand that last statement. Thank you.
Good.
Thank
Good.
you. Thank you very much.
And by listening to Sentha, then I realized where you were going with all of that. So I forgive me for the first part, but then I understood where you were coming from and what you needed to hear. So just, you don't have to have self-conceit or self-love, but you have to have self-compassion, compassion for the self-nature, which also
mind is mind.
Yeah.
There's no compassion.
Exactly. That's good. So I think that this is also what we call living, right? Not bad.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And thank
no
you.
problem.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
Go ahead.
Thank you for everybody listening.
All right. So I think that's it. Next week I'll have more time. I will do the ones about the antidotes of Shifu. Actually, I don't know if they're antidotes or antidotes. I think they're one and the same. So to my English challenged people, that's like a little bit of a joke. But in any case, we'll do that next week, and I'm putting them together, and I think it'll make a very nice way of of bringing in all of this, I'm talking about living and seeing the examples of living in there. Wendy's back, the other Wendy. Okay, 25 words or less, Wendy, go ahead. One
Okay,
question.
what if I have the same problem as the other Wendy? Well, I think I how do you have more wisdom than compassion?
You have a balance, and it's something that I actually, as I was beginning to practice, I had more wisdom than I had compassion, and compassion was kind of an unacquired taste for me. It was something that I had to really practice. I wasn't necessarily the most compassionate person, but as I've found now by the utilization of wisdom and the four great vows, in particular the four great vows, my compassion has really grown quite a bit. And it wasn't that I was an uncaring person, but it wasn't that I saw it as clear, but it was through the practice of right view and the utilization of Samantabhadra's vows, the four great vows and the 10 vows, that really enabled my compassion to be demonstrated. And this is how you practice in this way. If you can do it, you're not too far from it, and you'll have a balance of the wisdom and the compassion. So you do that in that way, and it will work in the right way. Okay. Okay, so that's it for tonight. Thank you all for listening in. Again, all of these are just like tying in all of what we're doing in terms of right view practice and all of the stellar or profound teachings, and bringing them right to the present moment and showing you, yeah, this is not scholastic stuff. This is the practice, but at the level in which we're practicing right view, which is mind, and reflecting in samsara that practice. That's what changes things. That's what makes it different. That's what sets into motion a change in the environment or a pure land on earth. Okay, so we'll continue on next week. If you have questions, bring them next time. I'll be glad to answer your questions. Okay, so take care, be well, practice well,